This week, we are joined in studio by Mr. Chris Roberts, who is the Chief Security Strategist for Ativo Networks. We are going to pick up on a conversation that I started with Chris a couple months ago on LinkedIn, where he posted about the big lie. So we're going to talk about the big lie today, and hopefully talk about how to get beyond the big lie. All this and more. So stay tuned and stay with us as we attempt to bridge the gap and build bridges between security and compliance.
This is a Security Weekly production. And now, it's the show that bridges the requirements of regulations, compliance, and privacy with those of security. Your trusted source for complying with various mandates, building effective programs, and current compliance news. It's time for Security and Compliance Weekly. Today's organizations face an evolving set of security threats and continually changing compliance requirements. As your business grows, privacy concerns only multiply and add to a dynamic set of priorities. Today's organizations need to integrate risk, security, and privacy into a cohesive program. Online Business Systems team of seasoned security practitioners work closely with you to assess your security posture, policies, procedures, and technologies, providing tailored solutions that are specifically aligned to your business's risk profile and ultimately ensure the protection of your brand. To learn more about Online Business Systems, go to securityweekly.com/online. Welcome
to episode number 16 of Security and Compliance Weekly, recorded February 4th, 2020. I'm your host, Mr. Jeff Mann, coming to you from G-Unit Studios. And there's no snow on the ground. I'm kind of disappointed. But I got here, so I guess it's a good thing. Joining me online today are my esteemed co-hosts, Mr. Scott Lyons, Mr. Josh Marpet, and Mr. Matt Alderman. And today we are lucky enough to be joined in the studio by Chris Roberts, Ativo Networks, and he does a few other things. Have an announcement first. Join us at InfoSec World 2020, March 30th through April 1st, 2020 at the Disney Contemporary Resort. Security Weekly listeners save 15% off the InfoSec World Main Conference or World Pass. Visit securityweekly.com/ISW 2020. Click the registration button and register with our discount code or the schedule button to sponsor a micro interview. So, here we are.
I finally made it to the studio.
Finally made it to the studio.
And I got alcohol. I just...
And he's missing the snow in Colorado.
Yep,
all three.
And he'll get back. He like completely went around it.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's slightly planned. Although not my fault. DC yesterday, so I'd rather be snow than DC, but different discussion.
So, Chris, you are frequently posting nuggets out on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And you did one, I think it's been about 2 months ago now. You titled it, I conveniently have it here, The Biggest Lie. And you prefaced it with, we're working towards compliance.
Yes. Oy vey. That I did.
And then you had some nuggets. I'll just share a few of them, and that'll hopefully just kick things off.
Oh, yeah.
Number one, security is not a goal. It's a journey. An ongoing game of chess with an adversary.
Yep.
Number two, security is an illusion. It's not achievable.
Yes.
So stop aiming for something impossible. 3, security can't be measured. Risk can. Security can't think OT, not IT. Compliance, number 4, compliance is nothing more than a step along the path. It's not a goal either. 5, if you're checking boxes, you're not doing security, you're playing bingo. And 6, it's a mindset, not a wall full of certificates or awards.
Oh, God.
So you remember that?
Oh yeah, I do now. Yeah, I was probably a late night growling rant after something or other. No, my luck. I am more civilized. LinkedIn, I'm a little bit more civilized on. Twitter tends to be the F-bombs. That my mother watches my Twitter account, which scares the hell out of me sometimes.
Wow.
You know, we need to do the 4-panel of you: LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook.
I actually don't have a Facebook in my name. I've got a bunch of other Facebook accounts, but I got nothing in my name on Facebook. And then what the heck is the other one? Not Tinder, is it?
Tinder?
Yeah, we may have some friends. that work for
Pinterest?
that.
Do you do arts and crafts?
No.
Yeah.
I don't
TikTok.
know.
I could totally see you doing like some crochet work.
No. How to organically dye your beard.
Yeah, there we go. See, I like that one. Yeah, everybody's like, is that Kool-Aid? I'm like, if you're drinking shit that this color, we got bigger problems.
So I read that post you did, and of course, we're doing this show, Security and Compliance Weekly, where we're trying to, among other things, try to explore ways of getting people beyond a compliance-only mindset,
right?
And I would argue even a security-only mindset, that somehow the two are interrelated and intermingled. But we do like to start our conversations with people with just sort of a one question, and feel free to take it where you want. But where do you fall on the continuum of security versus compliance?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's
that's why we only do one question instead of five questions.
Definitely. I mean, if you think about it, and I just did a talk on this one. I remember years ago, and you guys will have to kind of go with me on this one for a second. Do you remember growing up as kids, and I mean those of us that have got kids as well, when they got to a certain age, you started to put checklists to some degree together. Either that or you trusted them. And like, okay, hey, little Johnny, this week I need you to keep your room clean, help with unloading the dishwasher, etc. You basically had a list of things that you wanted the kids to do. Or when you got to a certain age, it was like, hey, here's a list of things. Put your damn laundry in the laundry basket. Don't expect it to walk there on its own. And we had those lists, and we gave those lists to our kids to help them actually navigate through the world. We also gave them as a way to help them grow. It's like, as you grow, as you try to attempt to get to adulthood, there are certain responsibilities you have to have. And we did it because we didn't expect us as kids to actually get to that level of responsibility without that help. To me, I would argue that the compliance world is that to us. So from those of us that have come into this industry and are working our way through it, those checklists that, hey, little Johnny, please put your firewall in place and turn it on, is no different than Johnny, get your frickin' rubbish and put it actually in the rubbish bin rather than stuffing it under the bed like we all used to do. And so that was our way of trying to help grow us and grow the industry and get better. The problem is, unlike a lot of the kids where it's just a guideline, what seems to have happened in the industry and what just general enterprises have taken, they've taken those lists as gospel. Mm-hmm. This is all I'm going to do. I'm literally going to pick up the 3 bits of rubbish you pointed out. I'm going to pick them up and I'm going to put them in the basket, the rubbish bin, trash can in this country. And so that's all they do. They don't look at everything else and go, oh, there are 6 other bits of rubbish. Maybe the socks aren't actually working their way to the washing bin. I actually have to pick them up myself. I have to take the initiative.
You wear them enough, they will, but
Oh yeah, absolutely, totally, yeah. I mean, good grief. I remember as a kid, I had little things growing under the bed somewhat deliberately. It was quite fun.
Dear God, can I extend your analogy, because I really like it.
And I'd started it, so please do, because it was one of those. I'm like, I need this. I need somehow to try to get people to understand it. So yeah, go for it.
So when you tell a child, you need to make sure that all of your trash gets in the trash can, your rubbish in the rubbish bin, your socks get in the laundry bin, and you do all these things. Then as they get older, you start explaining why. You start giving them context.
Yeah.
And in our industry, there was a tweet just happened the other day where somebody said, hey, I've got to explain to the board why we've got to do security and compliance. And people were tying it to business and risk. And it was beautiful. They weren't going after silver bullet solutions.
Yeah.
They were tying the questions that they were saying, ask the board this, because if you don't understand the context, then you don't have an answer for that.
Right.
So I want to extend that analogy. When your kid becomes 8, 9, 10, teenager, depending on their maturity level, dear God, some of us, I'm not going there.
Yes.
You start giving them context. You need to make sure the laundry is there, because the laundry has to, every Tuesday, the laundry has to be downstairs, because otherwise this household doesn't function properly. Mm-hmm. The rubbish has to go out to the bin every day, because otherwise it stinks, and we don't want that in the house. Do you want your toast smelling like old socks or old banana peels? No, dear God, that's why.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting analogy to build on it a little bit. I know we've had other conversations on other rants you've done where somewhere along the line we brought up religion.
Yeah.
And I would even take what you're saying in terms of, starting with little kids and just tell them what to do first, explain it later, as Josh has added. But that's kind of how we are as humans.
Yeah.
Religion in some ways is like the ultimate checklist.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do all these things and you're okay.
You're in good
whatever your belief system is.
Pretty much, yeah.
And what is missing there, and what is missing in raising childhood, and what's missing in our industry, is that context and the why, and understanding the reasoning, the spirit of things, if you will, behind all these different things that we tell people to do.
Right, because we did what some have done in these contexts, which is we use the fear factor.
Right.
And
Yes.
so we use fear as a motivator and not really get to the context side, right? And if we would have gone down this path of providing the checklist and then context why it's important and be able to learn and grow from that, we went straight to fear and we sold on fear because everybody saw a way to make money.
Well,
you see this in some of the ancillaries as well.
You pick on.
But I think part of the problem too that is I think part of humanity, and so it's not unique to our industry, is that a lot of us as humans, we don't really want to know the why. We don't want to think. We don't want to have to be responsible. Just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. In our industry, it's tell us what boxes I need to buy. What color should the blinky lights be?
God, that's yeah. Well, yes, we got blinky lights.
At the end of the day, people want to be removed from actually having to think or feel that they're in the role of a decision-making capability most of the time. We just want to be able to say, hey, we're doing work, we're doing a job. Get in, do the job, go home. A job is a job. So it's difficult to make that association, right?
Yep.
But the challenge on that one is especially in our industry. And I mean, yes, there's a lot of others out there, but especially in our industry, you almost can't. I mean, there are definitely some elements you can do that, but security unfortunately isn't 9 to 5, 8 to 6, or whatever else. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it feels like a lot of the time. I mean, this is more than a job. It's a mindset. It's a life. It's who we are. It's back to the conversation we had out beforehand, which was, what's our spirit? What drives us to do this? And go for it.
No, I love this.
No, wait. No, go ahead, Josh.
It's fascinating.
That was cruel, but I like it.
If you go back 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever, but back back in my day, and everybody was a generalist in information security, and everybody knew enough about everything to do just about anything.
Yeah.
And so we all knew the ramifications of the choices and decisions that we made and how they would affect the other pieces of not just security, but IT and the business, at least to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
So now you've got people that are understanding of the gestalt, the totality of what's going on. But now in today's world, we have people that are, I am a firewall administrator for Juniper.
Yeah.
And it's commoditized. So they're removed from the and we're going back to context again.
Yeah.
They're removed from the context, that gestalt, that holistic view of the world. And the mindset is simply not there. They have a job. They have a job description. It's written by HR, which screwed it up, oh my God, badly. And they do their job description, and that's it.
Yeah.
I would take that further, Josh, even into the hacking security community. It's, I'm a pen tester, or I want to be, or I'm a red teamer. And it all revolves around this.
Yeah.
I would also add, I agree with what we're saying so far, but add onto it the layer of the vendor side of things that promotes the technology is going to solve the problem. So not only are we complaining or pointing out that people don't think, and that's what they need to do, but we've got a whole industry that's pushing out products that are selling the notion, the ideal the technology and automation and products will do all the security for you so that you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, which is why we've created a $120 billion plus industry, and we still get breached.
Yeah.
Yeah, 124 billion in 2019. Another 10% this coming year. It's and you look at. I mean, there's a bunch of us that are sitting on. I think we've got 19, just shy of 19 billion accounts. There's a team of us. We run the company out of Germany, purely research, and we pull in all the breaches. And we were pulling in from the Tor nodes and the proxy servers that I run. And we're sitting on like 19 billion user IDs, passwords, and stuff like that. We're doing nothing else with it. It's there, and it's just from all the breaches. So 124 billion spent, 19 billion accounts breached. Take your pick. It's ridiculous.
Son of a breach.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. We send it.
Where are you pulling this from? Because we have listeners who are not part of the security community.
Yeah.
So how are you going about, like, I don't really want you to go into tradecraft specifics, right? But how are you going about pulling all of this data?
So a lot of it's we're basically watching. I'm sitting on 300 or 400 Tor nodes and several thousand proxy servers. So I'm obviously monitoring C2C, CDPs, I'm monitoring IRC channels, a whole bunch of others. So whenever I see anything talking about a breach, a system, an IP, and I've got a list. I mean, that list is fairly extensive, and it'll trigger on that list. It'll record the conversation. It'll go out to the site, and it'll pull any files from there. It brings the files in, extrapolates the files, and pulls any kind of account credentials out of it.
So we're done, is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So we might as well go get another drink.
Yeah, we need a hell of a lot more than that. I mean, it's stupid how
Show's
much stuff.
over.
Yeah. We own everything. Have a nice day. But
let's back this up a bit.
Yeah.
Because now we're talking about security, and this is a security and compliance show.
Yeah.
So we've got, I read your list on your LinkedIn post, and I friggin' love it, except the spelling errors bug me. But
did I screw up the spell? It was normally
He's a Brit. What do you expect?
Is it proper spelling or is it colonial spelling?
It's not the spelling. Sorry, it's a grammatical error. Number 3, security can't.
Well, then it's probably Brit.
Security can't. Period. Missing a period. Think OT, not IT. And I love what you're saying there, especially, to be honest with you, especially number 6. It's a mindset, not a wall full of certificates or awards.
Oh, okay. So a minor rant. I was sitting in a meeting inside our own organization, and we're sitting there and we're cheering ourselves because we've just won another 50 awards last year. I don't give a shit. What did we actually do to make a difference? Not we won, product of the year system. I care about what we did to make a difference. I care about the fact, we just put a press release out that says, hey, we're wonderful and we can find red teams. Who gives a shit? I actually care about what do we do to make a difference. Our job, when it comes down to it, the reason we train our kids, the reason we do things is to help protect. Our single role in life is to protect our charges. I mean, that's it. That's all it comes down to. Compliance should be nothing more than how can I help you? How can I protect you more effectively? How can I do my job to look after you, to keep you focused on what you need to do, and to basically run cover fire for you? It isn't to sell you more shit. I mean, that's it. That's all our job is.
So what you're saying in effect, right, is that we are now the legacy systems, and we're training our kids to be the mitigative measure for the legacy system.
Pretty much.
I hate you, Scott. I just want to be clear. I hate you, Scott.
Oh, jeez.
And I'd like to add on to that. Compliance is the cover fire for security to make sure that security has the budget to do their job. Okay. And also, it's the checks and balance on security to make sure that security is doing their job.
Yes, so that's the big one. Yeah, and in essence, I mean, you're right. When we first started doing this, you're right, 20, 30 years ago, we kind of knew. Yeah, don't even. We had a pretty good idea as to most things that were going on, but because it has gotten more extensive and more complex, I like the idea. I mean, you look at NIST, the 800 stuff. I love the fact that bear with me. Bear with me on this one. I like the fact that I can actually look through it and go, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh yeah, I like that concept. But then it's taking the idea and sitting down with the client and going, hey, I don't just want you to focus on this one piece. Let's take the view as to the entire organization. How do we help get everybody to that point and beyond?
And
Yeah, Jeff calls that PCI, by the way.
I do call it PCI.
And to extend on that, it's the journey and the NIST CSF and the CMMC and those guys.
Yeah.
They're not doing it as there's your score and it's 0 to 100 or whatever. They're doing it as you figure out where you want to be and how you're going to get there, and it's a long-term journey to get to the profile in NIST CSF speak that you want to be at. They agree with you, and I think it's a very good choice.
Here's the other thing.
It's always a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, Josh.
Here's the other thing I've used it for, and I've got literally a spreadsheet. It's a one-page spreadsheet, and you should be able to go through it.
Best tool there is.
Yeah, it just works. Here's the logic, because if I'm going to talk to a vendor, and the vendor's got, I've got a new blinky light, it's wonderful, it's a 2020 version, it's got AI, machine learning, blockchain's built into this thing, and you just, and it'll also do
We do not have enough alcohol in the studio for all the buzzwords you're dropping right now.
But I've got this new tool, and you as the client go, okay, help me understand two things. One, how that tool reduces my risk. Mm-hmm. But number two, if I have to be compliant from a PCI, HIPAA, FERC, NUC, take your pick, show me where you help me on those checklists. Not just for the little bit of it, but show me how you advance me. Show you how you get to my better maturity and reducing my risk at the same time. For that, it's useful if it can be applied properly.
And my guess is if you pose that question to any vendor, you get a blank stare back at you.
In most cases, there'll be
most vendors,
we're best in breed. We're Gartner Magic Quadrant. We're the most amazing at this. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We're a silver bullet. We're a silver bullet, I tell you.
Most vendors will come back and say, but it was in our emails that we've sent you. Didn't you read them?
Drink.
Literally, I'm going through a conversation right now with Sant'Arcangelo about when you should pay attention to a vendor email on LinkedIn. And it is, oh God, amazing. You're looking at both sides of the relationship between what can you spend to mitigate so much risk versus who actually has the product and do you trust them?
Yeah, the trust being the biggest one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Alternatively, if they have your child at gunpoint. I mean, these are the only reasons.
Hey, mitigative measure.
Yeah, teach the kid how to use a taser.
Damn straight. That's my man.
Exactly. Much simpler that way.
So when you somewhere in the comments of that original thread, post that you did a couple months ago, a statement was made, compliance does not equal security.
Right.
And while I agree with that at some level, I also disagree with it at a major level, especially from a PCI perspective. But I also lately I've been noticing, and I experienced this past weekend in numerous conversations at ShmooCon. Scott, our little group encounter session that we had with those guys, comes to mind. But
so eye-opening.
I think that the same mentality of compliance does not equal security is also spilling over into the security-focused people first, especially the ones that think that sort of pen testing and red teaming and finding all the vulnerabilities is it.
Yeah.
That in and of itself isn't security either.
Well, that and the fact. So, for those of you who don't know, Jeff and I sat down with a couple of newbies in our arena, right? People that have 3 to 5 years of experience, and we were asking them, how do you feel about compliance versus security? And their answer was, well, if it's not the 4 checkboxes that we need to worry about in PCI, we don't care. And to paraphrase the conversation, which was starkly interesting because we had somebody who is in the upper echelon of the security community had passed us, and we asked him to come over and join us, and his viewpoint absolutely floored them because he was coming from a director C-level and saying, well, if you don't automate things and try to force multiply your resources, you're never going to match the amount of risk that you're incurring by actually doing business. Right. So it caught him off guard. Right. So to be able to see the dichotomy between both of those thought processes was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy and illuminating, too.
Yeah.
And it unfortunately shows as an industry we got to get our own house in order as well. I mean, that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I
Define.
think, yeah, I mean, that's...
No, define. What do you mean our own house in order? I'm not challenging you.
No,
I'm curious.
totally,
What do you mean by that?
I think it's a lot of things. No, several things. One, let's be honest. I mean, I love the fact we all come at it from different angles. I love the fact that we have all these amazing discussions. But when we have so many different messages communicating with the business, I would argue the business is sitting looking at us going, okay, well, hang on. On one hand, you're telling me I need to do the checkboxes. On the other hand, you're telling me where do I need to focus? You know, the business itself, we probably confuse the heck out of the business to some degree.
You know, I'm gonna go back a little bit. I think that is also one of the functions of compliance, is to be the liaison between security and business.
That's a tough one. I mean, yes and no. So I would say we all need to be able to talk in the business language. We all need to be able to understand that our job in security is to protect the business. And then how can we explain that? I mean, all of us need to have the 30-second elevator pitch. And to be able to, you know, if we're trapped in the elevator with the CEO, the CFO, and they go, what do you do? It's not to garbage them with geek stuff. It's to actually help them understand, look, my job is to actually protect and help reduce risk inside your organization.
Chris, you sound like an entrepreneur. Be careful, man.
Sorry. Too many years in the startup world, it scares the hell out of me. I know. But that's it. I mean, if you think about it, anybody, any of us, anybody even 2, 3, 5 years into this organization, I mean, I grew up wielding a screwdriver in one hand and a freaking floppy disk in the other hand. I had to go talk to users. I actually had to interact with them and explain to them what I was doing to their computer in a language they understood.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, we all did it. And so, to your point, there's so many people coming in that are just very siloed in there. I'm a firewall person, I'm a this person. They don't necessarily understand or know how to talk in English or business speak. Mm-hmm. To help the organization go, well, what the heck are you actually doing?
Well, and I think we do a disservice to the younger and the newer people that are coming into the industry, because we tend to focus on a certain approach, let's say, to security, heavily weighted towards breaking things.
Because it's fun.
And it's fun. Yeah, it's fun.
Because people keep making new shit that we can break.
Yeah, but if you accept that as a given, then what next? But I think a lot of the new people, the people that we were talking to the other day at ShmooCon, they were like all about the breaking stuff and finding the vulnerabilities and doing things, and they were very dismissive of PCI, which I took personally, but I agree with them in the context of their view of PCI was more or less they were in charge of doing the pen testing or the vulnerability scanning. They didn't seem to be aware of that's only one of 400 different controls that are in PCI, and they seem to be oblivious to the other things. And I wanted to ask you, I asked you in the thread and never got an answer. Taking PCI as an example of, well, that's just compliance is just the beginning. It's just the bare minimum. That's something that's touted a lot in the conferences that I go to. My question is simply, what else is there? What should companies be doing beyond PCI?
And that's because all right, let's take that.
I have an answer for that, but I want to hear your answer to that.
So, I have a love-hate with PCI, probably for the same. Back into the beginning. I mean, it's All right, let's. All right.
Do you need a refill?
Not yet, but I'm going to after the end of this conversation. If you take an enterprise, okay, there's your enterprise. Mm-hmm. So we play the game of follow the packet from the networking world, and we know somewhere along that packet, PCI has to get involved. Maybe not the whole packet, but somewhere along that packet, PCI's got to get involved. Right. Because transactional, a whole bunch of other things. So great, now you take the industry and you go, okay, right, now that's the piece that PCI cares about. Or that's the piece that maybe is influenced by PCI. And this is my problem with it, is if you do your best to basically make sure that that piece is, as risk averse as possible, is as secured as you can humanly make it at this moment in time, you've now forgotten about the rest of the ruddy enterprise. So my challenge on, okay, if you want to get compliance, congratulations, you've become PCI compliant for that bit of the packet. But the rest of it, you've either ignored or you've just kind of like gone, you've separated off and, well, go fend for yourself. Good luck, have a nice day, don't click on too much shit.
Right.
And so that to me is the problem. Is like, how do you take that mentality and go, look, I don't want to PCI the entire enterprise because it doesn't need it. But I know my risks, I know where I need to apply them, I know where I need to reduce them, and it isn't just this little box over here. It's the entire organization. And by the way, the organization doesn't end when you open the exit door at the end of the day, because you take your email out of the door, you attach it to your car, you've got it talking to your fridge, your frickin' Alexa at home, if you haven't shot the stupid thing already, is, you know, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a mindset. To me, it's how do I help people change the mindset? That's not a compliance thing. Compliance is a way of prompting those questions in the same way as kids. We get prompted to put the socks in the rubbish, not in the rubbish, we put the socks in the wash and the rubbish in the rubbish.
Josh's socks need to go in the rubbish.
Can probably go in the rubbish, yeah, exactly.
From what I hear.
But that's
So
it.
I
a
have
mindset.
a question. I'm sorry. I hate to break in here. I wanna get this in before we go to break. In the thread, somebody commented, "We don't want that in scope for this pen test. Oh, because a true attacker will take your weakest links out of their scope. Probably not, but it's your money, I guess." Right?
Yeah, totally.
You said, "Oh, good grief." Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And then I think Jeff, if you're up for it, we'll go to break.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that whole thing is, you know, I'm PCI compliant, yet how many PCI compliant organizations have had their asses handed to them over the history of PCI compliance? Probably almost every single one of them, because they focused on this one area over here and they missed trying to educate the entire rest of the organization. Do you do user education? Congratulations, once a year you tell people don't send shit, don't click shit. It's useless. Congratulations, you've achieved compliance, but in the spirit of our job, safety, security, and protecting our charges, we haven't done that. All we've done is check a box.
I have a response to all of that, which I'll bring up after the break.
Sweet.